Thanksgiving is traditionally my favorite holiday of the year, and this year we have an added bonus. Illinois basketball. Locked on Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked on Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Illini. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Simple reminder, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Sonny Verma. You can find me at IlliniCast, or you can find me at the Sonny V. It's a way for you to communicate with me, what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show. Speaking of the show, today we have a fun one for you. Illinois made it official that they'll be playing Arkansas on Thanksgiving Day 2024. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And also we're going to continue our team preview series as we preview the Penn State Nittany Lions. Friendly reminder, if you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, it helps this channel grow immensely. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I've talked about this before, that Illinois and Brad Underwood in particular has really scheduled a very tough non-conference schedule. We're going to see a lot of marquee teams that are not just marquee by name, but marquee in talent that they have on the court. A lot of top 25 teams on the Illini schedule. And for sure, our Fighting Illini are going to be very battle tested once Big Ten season hits. But I don't think there's a game I'm looking forward to more than the game between Illinois and Arkansas on Thanksgiving Day at 3 p.m. Now, Thanksgiving Day, as I said earlier, it's already my favorite holiday. I get to just eat and spend time with family all day long. This year, it happens to work out that the Bears play at noon, and now the Illini play at 3 o'clock. So really, don't be expecting an episode of Locked on Illini the next day because I'll be out of commission. But I wanted to talk about why exactly this Arkansas game for me is the marquee game of the season. I like drama as long as it's not involved with my personal life. Let the drama happen in sports. And that Arkansas and Illinois game is going to have plenty of drama and storylines. Where do we even begin? Let's start off with what essentially kickstarted the offseason for the Illini, and that was Orlando Antigua. Orlando Antigua was an assistant coach for the Illini a few years back, and then ultimately he and Chin Coleman decided to go to Lexington, Kentucky, because John Calipari had a couple openings on his assistant staff. Well, John Calipari decided to move to Arkansas this offseason, and he had an open invitation to both Orlando Antigua and Chin Coleman to join him down at Arkansas. Chin Coleman obliged, and he's an assistant coach down there. Orlando Antigua, however, whether it was him or whether if it was a family member, decided he wasn't exactly too excited to go down to Arkansas. And so back to Champaign he came. Illinois let beloved alum Chester Frazier go to West Virginia, but a lot of folks are saying it's because they knew they had an opportunity to bring a guy like Orlando Antigua back. When you have a chance to bring back an inarguably top 5, if not higher, assistant coach in the country, you simply do it. So you talk about Orlando Antigua coming back, coaching against Chin Coleman, again, who is a former Illini assistant coach, with the guy responsible for bringing guys like Ayo to the Illini. You have a matchup between the two blood brothers, the Avicic brothers. That should be fun to watch. Both will probably be starting at the beginning of the game, so it'll be interesting to see that opening tip-off. Now, I'm not as confident in that statement as I was maybe a couple weeks ago with the way Morez Johnson has been apparently playing in these summer workouts, but as of now, you're going to have two blood brothers literally tipping off together, two very good basketball players in their own rights. And I do think that this is a game that's going to be big on the court because of the future battles that I foresee that Illinois and Arkansas are going to have off the court. You see, we talk about Brad Underwood having that undertaking of building a brand new roster this year. Well, John Calipari did essentially the same thing. I think, only had 1 or 2 guys returning from last season's roster. Illinois' freshman class this year is one of the 5 best in the country. Well, you know who else has a freshman class right up there with Illinois? It's Arkansas. And these are 2 teams who are very aggressive when it comes to acquiring talent in the modern day college basketball. Illinois has one of the top NIL funding when it comes to on the basketball side in the league. And we've seen it with all the talent that they've brought in. But it's arguable that nobody has a deeper war chest than John Calipari at Arkansas. That's one of the reasons he kind of left. He had the backing of Tyson's Foods and Walmart. And I mean, that you're talking about billions of dollars when it comes to those type of corporations. A lot of times in the future, when you're going to hear about a 5-star prospect or an international prospect like Illinois has been doing recently, you're going to be hearing Arkansas's name as well. Here is an opportunity. Here's a chance for Illinois, who I believe is probably going to be favored coming into the game. I don't know for sure. Obviously, it's too early to tell, but it's going to be an opportunity to go to Kansas City, where the game is going to be played, and really send the message home that Illinois basketball is big boy basketball. And for all those recruits who are, contemplating between the Illini and the Razorbacks, there's nothing wrong with adding an extra feather in your cap and showing, hey, we've already beaten these guys on the court, and now we're going to beat these guys off the court in recruiting you. It's a game that I believe is going to be on CBS. So you're talking about getting the national attention of everybody in America who's going to be stuffed from their Thanksgiving lunch and basically just lounging with sleep coma on their couches. And, why not just put a little basketball on for some background noise? So non-Illini, non-Arkansas fans are going to be watching that basketball game. College basketball fans all over the country are going to be watching that basketball game. And so with it being one of the marquee games of the year, it's really an opportunity for Brad and the staff to establish that next year's Illinois team might be a young one, but we're not at the point where we're rebuilding anymore. We're simply reloading. And it's a team that's going to have to be taken seriously. As some of you know, I very recently moved to the Austin, Texas area, and Austin, Texas is by far one of the up-and-coming areas to watch stand-up comedy. All the hottest comics are coming down to Texas, and when I'm looking for tickets myself, I'm using the Game Time app. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying live show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, next up in our Big Ten preview series, we're going to be talking Penn State. The Nittany Lions no longer have to deal with the Big Ten East when you're talking about playing Ohio State, Michigan every single year. Penn State, unfortunately, hasn't had the postseason success that a lot of their fan bases want. So I'm going to be bringing on Zach Sako. Did I pronounce that right?
You got it, Sonny. Appreciate it.
Zach, thank you for coming on. Can you let the folks know where they can find you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Same thing as you.
Excellent. So, Zach, let's, when I think Penn State, first guy I think about is James Franklin. He's obviously one of the most talked about coaches in the landscape. Obviously, he has that reputation that while he's been successful everywhere he's gone, at least at Penn State, he hasn't been able to win the big one. Now that things have kind of changed, the platform has changed on how to get into the playoffs. Do you think this makes James Franklin's job a little easier in the sense that he should be able to get in the playoffs now? Or do you think it could put more scrutiny on him if he's not able to win a round or two?
Yeah, I mean, that's the give and take of it, right? If you miss out on this 12-team playoff, you are absolutely going to be scrutinized for it. But if you look at the past teams that Penn State has put together, 16, 17, 18, 19, okay, not 20, 21, 22, 23, Penn State would have been in the college football playoff. So James Franklin has gotten them to that hypothetical point. Now it's an actual reality, and the stakes are higher in this case if you don't make it. So I agree with the idea that if Penn State were to really disappoint, because that's time. Look, how many teams are getting into the top four, year in and year out? Penn State kind of seems to be in this bubble of one of the few only schools that rarely get into the college football playoff, but they're just on the outside looking in more often than not. There's not a lot of other schools that deal with it that as much in this case. I guess you could maybe throw in a Utah, for example, but I feel like the national discourse around all of this is that Penn State is always a fringe top 10 team. They'll never beat Ohio State and Michigan, but it's tough to get into a 4-team playoff when there's 130 plus schools.
Exactly right. So the talk of this team, at least for next season, is obviously going to be Drew Aller. Drew Aller had a very turnover-free first season, but still, I think some folks may feel like he kind of left some things still out there. Is the development of Drew Aller the key to the ceiling for next year's football team?
I think it is because this team will be able to rely on its defense. This team will have a really good defense. They bring in Tom Allen, but how far Penn State will go is what Andy Kotelnicki, the new offensive coordinator, is able to do with So I want to preface that this offense isn't solely dependent on Drew Aller. Last year's offense was predictable, and Andy Kotelnicki is going to be able to open up so many things because it wasn't Drew Aller's fault. Penn State didn't lose games because Drew Aller didn't do X, Y, Z. It's because the offense didn't do X, Y, Z. So you have Drew Aller, you have Nicholas Singleton, you have Katron Allen, you have Tyler Warren. Penn State has weapons. They have really good assets on the offensive side of the football. They just had, under the direction of Mike Yurcich, they were mismanaged, they were misused, and now you have somebody that's just going to open up all the avenues for Penn State's offense to be successful. That's going to include having Drew Aller turn into more of a mobile quarterback. Sonny, you probably have the impression that Drew Aller's a statue, that, he's not going to be he is going to be a dual threat quarterback this season. Expect Drew to possibly run the football 10, 12, 15 times in a game. They have a dual threat quarterback behind him in Bo Pribula. So Andy Kotelnicki, it doesn't matter what it is. He's going to use it to get the offense to move the football down the field. It doesn't matter how crazy it is, how wacky, how unorthodox it is. He's going to use it to make sure that this offense can score points. Yeah,
we've been on the bad end of it at Kotelnicki offense last year when we faced off against.
Right, you saw it.
Yeah, and exactly like you said, we saw it. It's a creative offense. They really find spaces for their playmakers. Tell me, outside Drew Aller, what are the other playmakers on that offensive side of the football?
So I mentioned Aller, Singleton, Allen. If we want to look towards the wide receivers, Trey Wallace is going to be the number one guy. Everyone kind of assumes that Julian Fleming is going to be that starter. He'll ascend eventually to the number one wide receiver spot, and that's just not his. That's not going to be his job. He comes in more as a role kind of guy, not only from that veteran standpoint of just being a leader in the locker room, but somebody that's going to block. He's going to be the guy that, puts his helmet in the pile to, get the running game going. Doesn't mean that he's not going to be a capable receiver, but don't expect him to take over ball games and everything else. He's going to be more of a complement to the passing game rather than a focal point. That's what Trey Wallace is. I think everybody's looking towards Amari Evans because he is the speedster, so something that Penn State lacked was that explosive playability on offense. The only player that comes to mind as far as stretching the field and going over the top of a defense is Amari Evans. If they can find a way to unlock his potential, then that just opens up another option for Penn State's offense to be that more dynamic.
So let's switch on over to the defensive side of football, which you said earlier that's going to be one of the strengths of the team. Which unit of the three is going to be the main one for folks to focus on?
I would say either of the defensive line or the secondary. I have my concerns about the linebacker group. It's not that they're not talented. It's just the depth, because if there's an injury, if there's a player that has to miss an extended period of time, and that's anybody from a Kobe King to a backup rotational linebacker like a Tamir Robinson, I think that really puts what the linebacker core is going to be in doubt. So they need to be as healthy as possible for the whole season. But Abdul Carter moves to defensive end. You have Deni Dennis Sutton. I'd argue that is the best pass rusher duo in the Big Ten in the country. Penn State has 3 NFL caliber safeties that they're going to play. So they're going to run a 4-2-5 base defense because they have that many capable cornerbacks. Jalen Reed, Zachy Wheatley, and KJ Winston, who is going to most likely be a first-round pick. KJ Winston is that good out of the safety spot, and Penn State's going to rely on its secondary because of what they have at linebacker, or a lack of what they have at linebacker. But the overall, just the amount of talent that they have at the defensive back spot, they're too good to keep off of the football field, so they're just going to adjust the defensive personnel and the formations to fit what they have on the roster.
So speaking of the roster, obviously we have an influx of a couple teams from the West Coast coming in. Where do you think Penn State, just purely on talent, ranks in the Big Ten?
I'd say third. I'd say behind Ohio State and Oregon. I mean, Ohio State's my pick to win the Big Ten Conference, to win the Big Ten Championship, I think they do win the championship overall, the college football playoff. I think they're that good. I think Oregon's in there. I mean, I need to probably do a little more research myself on just how good Oregon can be, but I'll trust the opinions of a lot of other people that, have followed Pac-12 football, that know how good Oregon can be. But I don't think Penn State's too far behind. Again, if the deck breaks favorably for Penn State, they can be right in the Big Ten championship conversation. They can be at the top of the conference. Penn State is favored in 11 of 12 games according to Vegas. So according to Vegas right now, Penn State's fully healthy, and so is everybody else. They are an 11-1 team. But as we know, Sonny, the way that football is, injuries are going to happen. Teams are going to be really strong one week and then question marks surround them the following week. It can happen on any given week. But on paper, Penn State is better than 11 of its opponents other than Ohio State. And that game against Ohio State, Penn State is only a 3-point underdog at this point in time. So it's not like, Ohio State's a 2-touchdown favorite. They are right there. That's what Vegas thinks of Penn State as a team this year.
And usually when I do these team previews, I obviously also take a look at the team schedules, and which is something you just brought up. They're going to be favored in 11 of the 12 games. And even that Ohio State game they have at home. Now, having just Ohio State of what's kind of the perceived juggernauts in the Big Ten is going to be a huge favor for Penn State and the Lions. Like, how do you think that this schedule can help Penn State, possibly win that Big Ten conference?
I don't know that the schedule does help them. It's actually, according to Pro Football Focus, it's the top 10 schedule in terms of difficulty in the entire country. So the people that try to tell me, Sonny, Penn State's got an easy schedule, they got a lucky break, they don't have to face it. That's in comparison to the likes of like Michigan, because they play Texas early in the season. I'm not saying that Penn State's schedule is more difficult than Michigan's, but it's not significantly easier just because they play one additional opponent out of conference that is that much more difficult. But you have a stretch in the middle of the year when you're going to face UCLA, which I know probably won't be that good, but that's a new team that you have to face. That's a new team. Then you go on the road with no bye week to Southern California for the first time in 30 years from Penn State's perspective, the first time in James Franklin's tenure, and the first time for young student athletes who are 18 to 23 years old, right? That's a 6-hour plane ride for guys that have never done this. Go to Southern California. Okay, you get the bye week to come back and adjust, but then you go back on the road to Wisconsin. And that's going to be a physical Wisconsin team, an improved Wisconsin team. So I watched this stretch, Sonny, where it's at USC. Okay, you got a bye week wedged in there. At Wisconsin, against Ohio State, and against a Washington team that I think is frankly better than people are giving them credit for, even though they are replacing tons and tons of starters. I think they will figure it out in the second half of the season. And that's when Penn State's playing them, albeit in the whiteout at home, but still. So that's a tough 4-game stretch where they can trip and stumble, certainly, but in those games on paper, all things are equal in terms of, healthiness and everything else. Penn State is favored in those games, but I'm saying the stuff that's not on paper can absolutely trip them up in that 4-game stretch.
So all in all, just to kind of wrap this up, what constitutes a successful season for Penn State, and what result would mean it was a disappointing year?
A great question. I like when people ask me that because I don't think that Penn State needs to, as much as you would like to see it. Of course, you'd like to see Illinois win a national championship.
Exactly right.
For Penn State, they don't need to win a national championship. I don't even think they need to get to the semifinal. I think Penn State fans will be content if they make the college football playoff, they host a game, and they win that game. So after that, you get to the quarterfinal because I'm starting to see predictions. Oh, Penn State makes it to that second round, loses in the quarterfinal to a number one hypothetical, like a Georgia or something. If Georgia's number one, I don't think they beat Georgia in a neutral site quarterfinal game. Georgia's too much. You want to talk about juggernauts here? Even though I like Ohio State, if they were to hypothetically play the Bulldogs as that 8 seed going on to the 1 seed, like that's where I have Penn State. Is they end up being a 7 or an 8 seed. They host a playoff game. They win that playoff game at home in Beaver Stadium. And then they lose to whoever in that case, a Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State part 2, right? I just don't think they have the depth and the talent that it's a razor thin margin because they would need. Now, could things, of course, could they get lucky? Could they get a break? Because that's how Penn State, if they get a couple lucky breaks, they can be in that Big Ten championship game. But you don't want to have to rely on luck. But that's how close they are. This is a 10-2 team in my mind. This is a team that can compete and be around the Big Ten championship if things break in their favor. Same thing with the college football playoff, but I don't think they have enough to go on this Cinderella run to win a semifinal or get to the college football championship. I hope they make me eat my words, but I think the ceiling for this team is a quarterfinal appearance, at the absolute maximum, if they get lucky, a semifinal. But I don't want them to have to rely on luck. I think they host a playoff game. I think they win that hosted playoff game and then let the chips fall where they may in that quarterfinal.
Zach, I so much appreciate your time. You're one of the best in the business when it comes to Nittany Lions coverage. Can you let the folks know one more time where they can find your content?
Sonny, I'm flattered. I think you're one of the best in the business when it comes to Illinois and covering all things in the Big Ten. So that means a lot. Thank you. Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, daily shows, and more than that, bonus content as well around Penn State football, Penn State wrestling, men's basketball, recruiting. I try to talk about anything and everything that's relevant in the news cycle for Penn State sports over on all the platforms, similar as you, Sonny.
Thank you, Zach.
You got it. Thank you.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you taking a dream vacation this summer but dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you get cash back on all your purchases, so you can spend more time making memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, that just about wraps it up for today's Locked On Illini. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please, on your way out, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and more importantly, on whatever your favorite audio platform is, find us there and hit that download button there as well. It just really helps the show grow, more so on the audio side. On the YouTube side, we've been doing fantastic. Hitting 1,000 subs in 3 months is an incredible feat for us at this channel. And I do say us because it's not my show. This is our show. I'd love to hear your feedback on the comment section. Let me know in this out of conference schedule, what's the game that you're looking most forward to? Thanksgiving, what's Thanksgiving Day? We're playing Arkansas. What's the storyline you're going to be following the most? Heck, what's your favorite food on that Thanksgiving table? Either way, I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in for another episode, and we'll see you back tomorrow. ILL, love you guys.